But let's talk about this program. New Beginnings is a very bright, celebratory piece.
Right.
And lots of fanfares, and it's got some nice contrasts in it. Tell me about Peter Boyer's voice. Where do you hear? I mean, I hear a lot of things that sound very original. I think our audience might hear some things that might be reminiscent of some other composers, but it's a pretty unique voice, I think.
Yeah. Well, the way I hear Peter Boyer is that he is contemporary in the sense that he uses interesting rhythms. For example, much of this piece is in, not that the audience would necessarily know this, but there are measures in 10/8, 7/8, 5/8, going back and forth with these various meters. Yet at the same time, it's what many people would call accessible. I mean, it is not avant-garde, 12-tone, difficult to listen to music. It's very inspiring, passionate music, and some people might hear sort of like film music in it, and they would be right. I mean, Peter Boyer is primarily a film composer.
Right. He studied with Elmer Bernstein.
That's right.
One of his teachers.
And he was with the Henry Mancini Institute in California. Right. He lives in California. He works with other Hollywood composers, either as an arranger and has done original pieces himself. Right. So he's definitely in the film world. But he's done some great concert works as well. In fact, he had one just premiered by the Boston Pops, conducted by Keith Lockhart. Yeah. It just premiered this summer. Big premiere. It was a piece based on the speeches of the Kennedy brothers.
Oh, how interesting! Wow, very good. Well, again, that's a great opening. If people want to learn more about that piece, they can come to the concert. You can read the program notes in our program, or you can come to our concert talk, which is 6:30 before our concert at 7:30. I should mention that this first program is Saturday, September 18th, so coming up very shortly, and at 7:30 p.m. in the Capitol Theater in Yakima. So let's see. Let's move on to our second piece, which it's not exactly a concerto, is it? Even though it's sort of in the middle, where we tend to see a soloist, right? Yeah. But the soloist, in a way, is a different sort of performer, right?
It is. The soloist is actually Ansel Adams.
The photographer.
The photographer. Right. All the famous black and white photographs of Yosemite National Park. Among others. So yes, you're absolutely right. That's the normal spot for a soloist on a concert, is after the short opener and before intermission, followed by the big symphony. Right. Normally there's a soloist of some sort. And Ansel, this piece is called Ansel Adams America, and it was written by the team of Dave and Chris Brubeck.
Now Dave,
father and son.
Father and son, right.
And really the piece accompanies a series of over 100 Ansel Adams photographs, both photographs by Ansel Adams and of Ansel Adams.
Interesting.
And they will be projected on a giant screen above the orchestra, and the music and the orchestra will actually accompany these photographs. Unlike some other pieces, for example, Pictures at an Exhibition by Mussorgsky, where really the music stands on its own, and it's only recently that we have as performers have been perhaps adding pictures to the music. Right. It was really intended to be the music alone. Right. This piece was not intended that way. Right. It was written as an accompaniment and intended to be an accompaniment to the photography.
It's a very interesting story too, because according to the Brubecks anyway, this is the first time that the Ansel Adams Trust has allowed his photos to be used in this way, which is kind of surprising, because you see a lot of his photos. I mean, he's one of the beloved photographers in American history, a true artist with this, and it's surprising that people haven't. They may have suggested it before, but this apparently is the first time it's ever been done with their blessing.
Right, and I can understand that, because you never know what's going to happen with somebody's art. They could put some hip hop
Right,
music
that's
to it
true.
or whatever.
Or,
So,
well,
know,
and there's nothing wrong with that
No.
if it's appropriately done. And
appropriate for the photography.
exactly.
Right.
And again, in listening to a recording of it, it's really quite interesting. It's definitely something that I can't wait to see the photos.
Right.
Listening to it. The styles, though, have a bit of a history to them too. At least as far as the compositional process
They do.
and the inspirations. I mean, when you hear Brubeck, you're expecting some jazz and you're expecting some, I don't know about folk-like rhythms, but some interesting sort of rhythmic aspects to the work. But it's not just about that.
That's right. One thing that I didn't know before, and probably a lot of people didn't know, was that Ansel Adams actually studied to be a concert pianist.
I didn't know that either until I read about it.
Exactly, and he wanted to be a concert pianist and was heading in that direction, and it was only his fiancée and then future wife who really guided him more toward the photography rather than the piano. Well, that whole element of his life is worked into the piece. In other words, first of all, there are some photographs of him playing the piano.
Oh, no kidding.
There
do
are.
you think, are they in the?
They're in the show.
No kidding. How
That's
interesting.
right.
Wow.
And two of his favorite composers of piano music were Bach and Chopin. And so there are elements of the piece which are intentionally, imitating the sound or the style of Bach and Chopin.
Yeah. In listening to it, you can hear those spots. They're pretty obvious.
Right.
But there's some other things behind it too. Like for example, because it's inspired in some part by the visual images of California. There are some other elements. I mean, I think there's a section where it sounds like a sort of a Mexican mariachi band just sort of
That's
walks
right.
in, or walks by, or kind of a drive-by mariachi.
That's right, and that's because during that part of the music there are photographs of a southwestern Tex-Mex type village.
Yeah, interesting stuff. And the other thing that struck me about it that I think people will find very interesting is even in its sort of accompanimental nature, the flow of the piece as a whole has a very nice arch, I think.
It does.
It builds, it has some things that, as I listen to it, I want to see the pictures.
Right.
but I'm quite drawn in by it to want to see that, to see what sort of visual image goes with this crescendo, where it gets louder and then there's a bit of a splash. So what image is going to go with that? As opposed to the ones that go the different direction.
That's right.
So it's definitely sort of Brubeck-y in a way, right? Because it has a sort of a free flow to it, a very creative aspect to it, a lot of different parts to it. So if you don't like one part, you just wait a little while and something else will come along.
Yeah, it's not segmented in the sense of
Right.
separate movements.
Right.
For example, like a symphony, it's one 22-minute piece,
Right.
continuously composed.
But it's very interesting. Lots of ebbs and flows, lots of interesting peaks that, again, I can't wait to see the pictures that go along with it. So it should be a very interesting performance. Now, this is the first time in Washington, is that right?
That's right. It's not the premiere. It's not the world premiere of the
Right.
piece, but it's the first time that it's been done in Washington.
It's still a recent piece, though. It's only a year old, right?
That's right.
Yeah.
But it's been played already several times throughout the country.
Yeah.